Welcome to the Inspired Caring podcast, where women who are in the messy middle of this big, beautiful, and sometimes chaotic life are finding inspiration and resources to care for themselves and figure out the best options to care for their aging loved ones. How we take care of ourselves today impacts how we are aging tomorrow. This podcast will help you feel seen, centered, and aligned. Everyone that relies on you is so lucky to have you in their life. The Inspired Caring podcast is your reminder that the number one person that counts on you is yourself. Congratulations on being here in this moment. Let's dive in and be inspired. I am delighted to have Megan Hale with Dream Money today on the podcast. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. I think this is such an important conversation because women have different relationships with money. And as we know, money is how we do the things we want to do in the world and take care of ourselves and make contributions. And I think as family caregivers, we know that it also takes money to care for the people we love.
Yes.
And again, take care of ourselves along this journey. So
yes, 100%.
I am really pleased that you were willing to come on and share a little bit about your journey with Dream Money. So let's back up a little bit. And I think just start with, how did you enter this space? Like, because you are a digital and a professional giant in this space. You've come.
Well, that's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
So I would love to just start from a little bit from the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you would have told me that I would be growing a fintech company that's helping women step into a healthier relationship with money, but also helping them earn more money, I would have been like, how in the world am I supposed to be doing that? Because for the great majority of my life, my relationship with money has been complicated, to say the least. But I think that that's one of the reasons that this work feels so right for me to step into, because I know what it's like to be on the other side where money feels heavy, it feels shameful, it has a lot of guilt for some of us. There's a lot of cognitive dissonance that shows up for us when we start talking about wanting more money and that being okay. And so I've lived that so intimately, and also not having any sort of financial education whatsoever. So feeling very just inept at understanding numbers, how to make sense of those numbers as a business owner. And so I know so intimately that path. So to be on the other side now, who has built such a rich relationship with money and also learned a lot of money skills to successfully grow and scale businesses, I feel like that's such a gift. And I think one of the things that business owners so appreciate is that I don't talk about money in a way that is very jargony. It's very relational. Because that's really where my roots are. And so before doing all the work that I do now, I started as a former psychotherapist, really helping people live happier, healthier lives. And when I shifted into the coaching space, and especially around money, I realized that we each have a very specific relationship with money. And all of my background really got to be applied in a really different way of really leaning on the financial psychology that we all carry and how that impacts our decisions, how that impacts our self-worth, how that impacts what we believe is possible, and on and on and on. So it's been a winding path here, Michelle. I've had a private practice as a psychotherapist. I then started an online coaching business about 10 years ago. I struggled in that business for the first 3 years until I created the Dream Money framework. It radically shifted my life, helping me double my revenue during a really, really challenging year of my personal life when I was, not caretaking an elderly parent, but I had 2 children under 2 when my partner was deployed for 6 months. It was really, really hard. And then I just started teaching it. And now we're building this $100 million company. And, it's kind of wild to say that, but that's how we got here.
That is incredible. And you're really paving the way for so many. And I think that's part of our conversation today, is how as you are growing and scaling a really successful business, how are you taking care of yourselves and managing being a busy mom? Because so many women who are in this space of this chapter of our lives, we are wearing a lot of hats.
Yes.
So I think I'd love to hear about how are women really approaching money in your experience right now, especially
Mhm.
with our current economy, and what is a current woman's potential? Because we're all different and we all have different relationships, like you said, but how is she thinking about money and how is she feeling about money?
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is so unique to the individual and where they currently stand in their business and with their personal finance. I think if you don't have any knowledge of finance at all, you're probably feeling overwhelmed, or sometimes we actually avoid our money in order to cope with that overwhelm, because we tell ourselves it's better for us to not know. So then we don't
Mm-hmm.
have to see, the reality of our financial situation. But one of the things that I often tell people is that even though looking at the truth might feel scary, the truth is really there to guide you and support you so you can make more empowered decisions. And I think that's one of the things that I often find myself in conversation with women of, let's just get in the room with money, even if it's just for 5 minutes, to see like what's going on, because the not knowing is not helping you feel empowered either. And so I think that's like one of the biggest things. And so I think, women might feel very anxious around money right now, especially with the economy, especially as business owners, because so much is up in the air. And so, how do we cope with that? One of the biggest numbers that I think all of us need to know is your minimum viable revenue. And that number to me is the number that we all need to be pursuing in our businesses in order to create stable, consistent cash flow for ourselves. And it really helps you understand like bare minimum, like what do we need to be doing here? And once you have that number, you can start reverse engineering. Okay, what are the steps I need to take to get there? But also just being on top of your personal finances too, of how much money is going out. I think in lean seasons, a lot of us are starting to think about maybe cutting costs, to shore some things up if we need
Mm-hmm.
to, or we might be taking some extra time of really thinking about the things we want to purchase or the things we want to invest in. And I think that that's just how like markets go through cycles, right? And anytime we're in an economic downturn, you're going to see increases and pauses in financial decisions. Like all of those things are very, very normal. So I think for anybody who's feeling financially anxious, I think a lot of times what I hear the most with women is that they're in scarcity mindset and that they are blaming themselves for having financial anxiety when there's a lot of things going on that makes sense you would be financially anxious. So not to bypass the real feelings that you're experiencing, but also moving into action of like, what is it that you need in order to feel more financially safe or secure?
I think what comes to mind when you talk about the minimum viable revenue is like, what is enough? And I feel like it's very easy to slide into, well, there's just never enough. There's never
Yeah.
enough money.
Mm-hmm.
And that really does encourage people to look at what would be enough. But I think the other piece that's so interesting about the work that you do is you're not looking at just covering your expenses. You expand into other areas of our
Mm-hmm.
life.
Yes,
Would you
for
share a little
sure.
bit more about that?
Yeah, I think oftentimes when we're thinking about enough, we are looking at like a very small lens. And when we end up focusing on too small of a lens, we might make that money, but then it still feels tight. And the whole purpose of enough is truly that you feel supported. And so when we're thinking about what functions our money needs to be serving for us in order for us to feel supported, I think about that through seven different lenses. The first as a business owner is making sure your personal pay is covered, that you are able to afford your life. I think this is one of the biggest pieces that most of us are aware of when we're thinking about what is truly enough. And then, of course, how much we need in order to cover our business expenses so we can continue doing our work in the world. And maybe most people are also tracking taxes. Those are three very key needs that we all have. But what I have found over the years is that we also have other expenses or financial needs as business owners that help us create more financial security for ourselves. The first is making sure we have enough money to set aside in business savings. That's going to be one of the biggest things that you can ever do for yourself, for creating that sense of financial security, that you have a safety net if or when you need it. That we also have revenue that we can put towards hiring people or covering our payroll, so it's not just us. If you are at that place in your business where you already have team, what a lot of business owners do is that they will prioritize paying their team before they are paying themselves, which can be something that maybe you can do for maybe a month or two, but it's not going to be a long-term solution. And so we really need to
Mm.
be thinking about both supporting you and your team. We also want to be setting aside money to reinvest back into our businesses, even if it's, $500 a month that we're able to set aside, because every single year your business is going to have some sort of project that needs to be completed or a person that you need to hire that helps you level up as a business owner. And then the last financial need that I think about is also having a give back in your business. If you want to have more than enough money, what most of us need to create for ourselves is that we also have enough to give, and that we don't have to make a decision between, feeding our family or being able to help somebody out in need. And so when I'm thinking about minimum viable revenue and how we calculate that at Dream Money, we're taking all of those 7 key needs into account, making sure that you have more than enough to give, more than enough to save, more than enough to hire, more than enough to reinvest back into your business, because most businesses are going to need that. And of course, those 3 most basic needs that most of us are tracking.
I think for the listener who's thinking like, well, I don't have a business. How would this apply to me? I know my thought on that, but I'm curious what your thought is on that too.
Yeah, well, I mean, you would not be necessarily calculating a minimum viable revenue to support a business. But one of the things that I think, I mean, going back to one thing that you said of like taking care of ourselves as we're
Mhm.
caring for others, is also thinking about what's the support that you need to delegate so you're not doing everything on your own. I've always been growing a business with 2 little ones and an active duty military member who is always, going and leaving and going and leaving. And now he's,
Mhm.
retired now and he's still going and leaving because he's a pilot. So there's no way that I could do all the things that I would need to do if I was doing everything on my own. So even thinking about your household help, like if there's a laundry service that you could delegate things to, if there's a housekeeper that could come in, if there's someone who can help you order groceries or go grocery shopping for you every week. Like these are some of the things that from a personal finance level, thinking about how your money can better support you by bringing more people to support you. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I had to work through as a woman and all of my financial conditioning is that I was supposed to do everything on my own and not ask for a lot of help. And I found myself, especially during that challenging year when I had just created Dream Money, that I was asking for the bare minimum and literally drowning. And that was a really big wake up call for me of like, why am I only asking for the bare minimum instead of what I really need to be supported?
That is a much more eloquent answer than my short version of thinking.
Please share your version now.
Thinking the same thing, like you have to reinvest in yourself. You have to invest in
Yes.
yourself, and you have to. I mean, and I am going to say have to. I don't often use such strong language. I like to say I invite you to, or we have options, but really it is a have to because I don't know where the mindset shifted for women that we decided that we were supposed to do everything by ourselves. Like historically, you and I are in a wonderful networking group, and it's all about circles and community and leveraging each other's strength and being connected. And at some point in our history, we all came inward,
Yeah.
and it is a blessing to be able to pay somebody else
Oh,
to
yes.
help you and to do something for you.
Yes. I see that as like non-negotiable at this stage of my life.
Yeah.
It's not something that I can live without because it's just too much. It's just too much. And I think like all families really need like 3 adults because it's just, I mean, it's a lot to raise kids and also have careers and also have time for a marriage and all of the on and on and on. So I think the more permission we can give ourselves to really lean in, and even if you want to start small, you know, just hire out a laundry service. Start there. Just get like one domestic task off your plate because it's amazing just how much space and time that frees up for you. So it's like one less thing you need to worry or focus on.
This also introduces the concept of fair play life.
Oh,
And
I love that.
I love Eve's work. She'll be on the podcast in February. And it really talks about the distribution and equity of labor in our homes and
Yes.
what is realistic. Have you engaged with that work?
I have not engaged deeply with that work, but it's a concept I'm very familiar with. And
Mhm.
there's also somebody else that I follow that teaches children around the mental labor of running a home. Her name is Sam
Mm.
Kelly, and I really love her account of just how she's teaching kids how to think through all the things that she just intuitively keeps track of in her head, right? Or even like a very simple example is like before they go to the grocery store, her and the kids she asked them to look in the cabinets, like just take stock of everything they have. And then they're in charge of replenishing the things that they saw and they're putting them in the cart. And I just think like, yes, we need to be teaching kids from a young age, just all the mental labor that goes into the 9 million things that we're keeping track of in our heads.
And it's not like you and I took a class on that.
No.
Like you just figured it out and realized how to set yourself up for success.
Yes. Yeah.
Our Alexa, which you can't say the name too loudly in any room, but I realized that you could be standing in the pantry and ask Alexa to put things on the shopping list.
Perfect. Perfect. I mean, I think
So,
that's the other thing too, is like with the rise of AI, which it's a very mixed bag. I do think that it's going to be able to help automate a lot of tasks for us and take some of the things that we hold in our head and start to automate them, which is nice.
right. I agree. I am a fan of AI.
Yeah.
I am curious because you mentioned that you came from like the scarcity mindset and background, and that you were a psychotherapist and you stepped into coaching. So I just want to, I guess, pull the thread on investing in yourself in coaching and helping you shift your mindset. And
Mm.
so share more about that with us.
Yeah, I mean, I have a very strong opinion on this, mostly because when I was making the shift from therapy to coaching, one of the first concepts I became aware of was the importance of money mindset. And this was a very novel idea to me at the time. And the minute somebody said it, I was like, oh, I have money stuff for sure coming up around wanting a lot of money and what that meant about me as a person. I started thinking about all the conditioning that I had carried from, religious upbringing or being in a patriarchal society and all of these things. And so I really latched onto that concept and really went down the rabbit hole of exploring my personal relationship with money, my childhood upbringing, the stories and the things that had been modeled for me, like all of it, right? But I think the thing that I'm so passionate about now is that money mindset alone is not the thing that's going to help you feel safe with money.
Mm.
We also have to understand the financial skills that we need to be learning to feel truly safe. And the metaphor that I often use is I want you to imagine that you're trying to build driving confidence, like driving a car, that you know how to handle yourself in tough situations, but you've never actually driven a car. You've only thought about driving a car. You've only had somebody teach you about what to do in those situations, right? It would be almost impossible for you to feel 100% confident, like an embodied confidence, if you did not have the lived experience of actually turning the ignition, learning how to put pressure on the gas and on the brake, and how quickly you can take a turn, and all of the 9 million things that we learn by actually doing something. And so that's why I think when we're thinking about, financial confidence and moving from a place of scarcity to abundance, even, you have to have the mindset of the beliefs for sure, but you also need to have the financial skills. And those two things together are the thing that really build financial confidence and open up so much more possibility of what you believe is truly possible. So, for anybody out there who might be on a financial healing journey, I just can't iterate that enough. Do the money healing work, but couple that with a very parallel process of really understanding numbers and understanding cash flow and all of those intricate pieces, because it's really the whole picture that you need if you want to create something different.
Do you have some favorite books that you recommend, or podcasts,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
resources?
One of my favorite books that I've ever read is called Sacred Success. It's by Barbara Stanny. And she is, I think, she's either the daughter or the granddaughter of one of the founders of H&R Block. And so huge financial upline, right?
Mhm.
For financial skill set. And she really talks about her journey of really understanding just the conditioning that she carried as a woman. And I want you to imagine, like, even from a young age, depending on like when you were born, I think a lot of women were taught that they weren't good at math, they weren't good at numbers, right? They were taught how to balance a checkbook, but not how to earn money, not how to be financially independent. We didn't even have our own checking accounts until the 70s. We had to have somebody else co-sign for us.
Mhm.
And so, and even getting your own mortgage is something that's relatively new within like this generation, right? And so I think putting that in context of just how far behind we are on normalizing women and wealth. And so that book really talks about the history that we're all like living in, but also how to shift into a different dynamic. And so I really, really love that book. I also think reading a book like Profit First, which is more of like the applicable tools and skills of money management, is really great. And then, of course, having a platform like Dream Money, which will be a shameless plug, but it's really the only platform I know that integrates both financial psychology and the financial skills of money management for business owners. Um, but I think one of the most important things is just starting to read more, starting to read more. And then the other book that I really love is Money, a Love Story by Kate Northrup, which really talks about your personal relationship with money. And then I have a lot of good episodes on a prior podcast of mine called Wild and Holy Radio, where I talk about all the layers that I worked through to really shift my relationship with money, reorienting my relationship to debt, which was a huge thing, understanding how I could use the five love languages, if you're familiar with that book by Gary Chapman, to heal my relationship with money, how to understand your transgenerational money story and shift into something different, understanding what you're really afraid of when it comes to stepping into more money, which is not what you think. So there's a lot of good episodes on that if you want a more personal approach.
I love that. And it's called Wild and Holy Radio.
Hmm.
Okay. And that was your podcast.
Yes, I have had three podcasts so far, and I just launched a fourth one, which is a private podcast. I started with the Enoughness Revolution, which is an amazing conversation on cultivating enoughness and bravery. Then the second podcast is Wild and Holy Radio, which really explored how to stand in your dichotomies of being both wild and holy, that you can be both.
Mhm.
And that episode ended up taking a detour to really talking about holiness and money and how we can hold both based on my own personal relationship with healing those things. And then I also launched a podcast called TBD, which is more of a business podcast. When I had to go through a complete rebrand. And what do we do? Like, what do we do when we lose a huge brand name and we're just kind of floating in the ethers? And then the private podcast I just launched is just fireside chats, and it's taking you behind the scenes of the strategic decisions that I'm making and the way I'm self-coaching myself as I build Dream Money.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I will put links in the show notes to all of the resources that Megan has shared and all of her podcasts so that you can quickly access them and follow those and get connected with her. Um, that was abundant. Thank you for sharing all of those great resources.
Yes.
I had a thought that has already fleeted out of my head. Oh, I was going to share with you just our own personal family experience with money. And as I've been building my business, being in this space where I have 401k money that is obviously protected by taxes, which is accessible, but you take a hit on it. And my husband and I, about a year and a half ago, we're having these conversations because every year I felt like I was having to go to him to ask for money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and what I said to him a year and a half ago was, you're holding all of the handles of all of the buckets of our money, is
Yeah.
how I was feeling, which
Mm-hmm.
is not, it was just how I was feeling in that moment. And we have very transparent discussions about money. I have access to all of the money. Obviously, when as a partner, I want to make sure we're making decisions together
Yes.
about our money. but it was just this undercurrent feeling of needing permission, and it
Mm-hmm.
felt gross.
Yes, that was the word I was thinking. Yes.
Yeah. Um, and and it wasn't, you know, him and his energy ask like that I had to ask for permission. It was me and how my mindset was and how I was showing up.
Yeah.
So this year for the investment in the business, it was a pretty frank conversation.
Yeah.
And it still is this space of like, I'm not exactly sure because I don't pull all the strings behind the scenes to shuffle the money around.
Mm-hmm.
But that
Mm-hmm.
goes back to what you're saying is if I was more involved with that, which I'm invited to be at any time, but I
Yes.
kind of have that, like, I don't have time for that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that like that's part of financial leadership is you making the time for that and choosing to make the time for it, right? And I
Yeah.
think oftentimes, when I was first shifting all this, so in 2017, I just created Dream Money and I went through, this whole big shift in my business. The following year, 2018, when I was going through all of the hard things, and my husband was deployed and all of that, I sat down and I met with my money every single day for a whole year. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that makes me tense in every muscle of my body and kind of makes me want to throw up.
Now, I didn't start off saying, I'm going to do this. Like, it wasn't a goal that I set. It was something that I just found myself getting centered and getting focused. Okay, what is my focus right now? What are my goals? What are the dreams I'm pursuing? What's going on with my cash flow in my business? Let me check in on the personal finance too. And it just became, and I didn't do the exact same thing every single day. Every single day was a little bit different. But it became this grounding ritual for me when everything else felt really chaotic.
Mhm.
And what I can promise you is if you have a practice like this, even if it's just a minute a day, it does not have to be long. It's the ritual of sitting down and making space for money, okay? Because I want you to imagine that you're trying to build intimacy in a relationship, but you don't want to spend any quality time with this person, right?
Not gonna work.
How are those two things going to happen?
Right.
So you can't expect closeness, you can't expect safety, you can't expect trust, you can't expect clarity, you can't expect any of those things if you're not first building connection. And so that's what that year taught me is that simply by making space for money and setting, a meeting with it every single day, I was really saying, I value you. I value what you are in my life. I want to get to know you better. And I know this might sound a little bit woo, but I feel like maybe you can go with me here. I also felt like my money started to know me better too.
Mm.
It started to know how I really wanted to be supported. It started to know what I needed to see in my money for me to feel safe, for me to feel more empowered. And it became this partnership. And that radically shifted everything. Because up until that point, I had felt oftentimes that money was never enough, that it often abandoned me when I needed it most. It didn't come in the way that I wanted it to. Like I had all these feelings,
Mm-hmm.
but I also was blaming it for a lot of things that it was never money's job to hold. And so me and money, we worked a lot of things out that year, but it was only because I made intentional space to sit down with whatever needed to come up that day.
I feel like we've had so many mic drop moments with you today, like what you're sharing with us. That's really powerful.
It was
That is
really
really,
powerful.
yeah.
And anytime I'm starting to feel like there's distance between me and money, that's always my first go-to is to really start meeting with my numbers more regularly and building more intimacy and connection. And I think the thing that you'll realize is that your money, like depending on what your dynamic is with money, money is really there to support you. It's there to cheerlead you. It's there to make your wildest dreams come true. Like it wants nothing more than for you to feel happy, safe, and secure. And so the fact that we're afraid of looking at those numbers, we're afraid of looking at the numbers because we think that those numbers are going to say you're not doing enough, you don't know enough. Like, can you hear the dialogue we're already preparing and bracing ourselves for?
Mm-hmm.
And money is over here like, why are you thinking I'm going to say those things to you? right? Money's not saying that. And I think when you can start to see money as its own entity and seeing it as like a loving force in your life, that it's here to support you and hold you, I mean, everything changes.
That's amazing. I mean, that is, you're right. It's this feeling of, and I don't know, maybe this is like some middle school version of me. It's when you leave the room and you think they don't really like you, like they were just
Mhm.
being nice to your face, and having that same dynamic with money,
Yeah.
that it doesn't really like you if you're
Yeah.
not, engaging with it a certain way.
Oh yeah. I mean, in that episode on debt, I remember like this was one of the biggest shifts for me because I had grown up with this really toxic message that debt was wrong. It was shameful. It was even like of the devil. Like I'm talking about some really intense messages around debt.
Hmm.
And I really had to unpack all of that. But I had a coach once ask me, I want you to imagine you're looking at a picture of you and the people you love, and debt is in the background, right? And up until this point, debt literally felt like it had its hands around my neck. Like that's how heavy debt felt for me. And it was just like shaming me and like, I can't believe that you would go and spend beyond your, like all these stories, right? This back.
Yes. Yeah.
But for some reason on that particular day when she asked me this question, I didn't see debt that way at all. I saw debt as this thing that was like wildly cheering for me of like, look what I've been able to help you achieve. Like, look at the support I've allowed you to call in. I've been here as your safety net,
Hmm.
always supporting you. I'm not this horrible, shaming thing that you have been taught to believe. And so it's just, I could talk forever about these things, but it's just so fascinating when you start to really unpack all of these layers and the freedom. Oh my gosh, the freedom that's on the other side.
That gives me chills. The other thing I think that we are taught to have shame about is wanting to be rich. And I
Yes.
feel like so many women I know in business offer this disclaimer of, well, you know what I really want? It's not about the money, is I just want to help people. And I want
Yes.
to help all the people too.
Yes.
And I want to be really fucking rich
Yes.
and
Yes.
feel good about it. So how do we
Yes.
shift our head around like reconciling wanting to help people, and it's also okay to want to be rich?
Yes. I mean, so that's like the both and, right? And that was really like back in the wild and holy days, that and was everything. The and is the
Hmm.
bridge to expand, always, always, and forever. And so
Oh, like
when
the
we,
pause. The and is the bridge to expand.
yes,
Oh,
yes. And so anytime you find yourself, it's either this or it's that. If you're in either or black or white thinking, shift it into an and just see what happens, right? I can either be about the money or I can be about the people.
right.
What happens if you can be about the money and be about the people? And here's the thing, we have so many examples of people who have only been about the money and not been about the people. But we also have the opposite. We have examples of people who are only about the people and not about the money, right? And
Yeah.
those organizations are not resourced, they're not well funded. They are greatly stifled in doing the most amazing work that they feel called to do in the world. And so the new paradigm that I want us to step into is that it's both and, that you can be about the
Mm.
money and you can center people. And we actually need more examples of that in the world that starts to rewrite this whole narrative. The thing that I think has also helped me is there's a book. It's called, you might be familiar with Glennon Doyle, who wrote Love Warrior. She's an amazing author. It's such a powerful memoir. I've read it 3 times and I do not reread books. Okay. It is
Wow.
amazing. But that whole book chronicles her story of self-abandonment and how she learned how to really step in for herself. But there's just so many different layers there. But one of the things that she said is that what most of us think that we do in order to topple a system is that we have to tear the current system down and rebuild a new one in its place. When actually what we need to do is play the games by the current system because that's what gives us power in the current system. And then we start toppling it down from the top. And
Mm.
so, whether we like it or not, unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic society, and capitalism is not all bad. There's a lot wrong with it, a lot wrong with it. But because we live in a capitalistic society, power equates to money. It equates to decisions. It equates to being in powerful rooms where conversations are being had that we need to be a part of. And so if we want to change the system, we have to use the power quotient, which is money in the system, in order to get into those rooms. That is going to be the quickest way to topple something from the top so we can rebuild something new.
And when you share that, I immediately start to think of masculine versus feminine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a networking meeting in the First National Bank of Omaha building downtown. And like, I swear to you, that building was vibrating. Like, you could feel the movement and the energy of the money that was happening and flowing through there. And there was definitely, to me, it felt like a more masculine component
Mm-hmm.
to it. And so I guess for finding some balance with between that masculine feminine, if you have any suggestions with that, because I think for me, just in my business, I'm continually, and I don't think I'm struggling with it, but I feel like I'm stepping in and I can hold both within the same conversation
Mm-hmm.
with someone, because different responses may require a different energy that I'm bringing to it. So share just a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I think that I don't want to overgeneralize, but I feel like I have to in order to answer this question. So the masculine, whether it's healthy or toxic masculinity, I think that there is a real drive to protect.
Mm,
And that can show up in lots of different ways. I think in its most toxic form, it can show up in a way of hoarding as to protect, to have
hmm.
reserves, right? And when it's in its healthy, like money is always in flow. That's always going to be health and wealth out. And the feminine, if you look at statistics, when women make more money, they tend to allow more flow with their money to their communities, to their organizations that they care about. Women are givers, right? And that's also one of the reasons that in the Dream Money framework, we actually cap our users' giving so they don't overgive to sacrifice themselves, right? We want to be mindful of what sustainable giving really looks like so we're not falling into the overgiving component. But for me, when the research is saying that as women make more money, they're actually circulating more money, and we have 80% of the buying power in this country. Okay. And so
Unbelievable.
80% of buying power is coming from women's decisions. I mean, think about how your household runs, right?
Mhm.
If you throw a fit that about your husband buying something, he's probably going to take a step back and say, okay, I'd really rather my wife not be mad at me. So we have a lot of power in how money is spent and how it flows. And so I think that's the thing that we need more balance in, is that we have in our current structure, we have the 1% that's hoarding wealth. Nobody needs a billion dollars. Nobody needs $1 billion, right?
Right.
But I think the thing is that when women think about earning money, is that that's what you mean, is that you're going to become this like 1% of the population that's doing the things that all these people are doing. And that's not, we're not trusting our future selves to hold enough wealth that we would actually hold it differently. And so what a lot of us do is we actually self-sabotage ourselves from earning money because we're so deathly afraid of becoming a version that like makes our skin
Hmm.
crawl, that we go ahead and block that path for ourselves before we even give ourselves a chance to win. And so for me, it's about realizing that a more feminine model of wealth is always going to create more flow. It's going to create, like, you will still amass wealth for yourself and building transgenerational wealth for your family, but you're not going to be someone who hoards wealth, because if you're already concerned about that, like, you're the least person, like the least likely person to actually do that because you're so deathly afraid of becoming that. And so I think that's one of the things that we just need to keep in mind, that like give yourself a chance to experience it, to feel it, to learn how you hold it, and also learn how you give it and let it flow through you.
I love that. Give yourself a chance. And if you don't like it, go back to the old way.
Yeah.
But I,
Yeah.
I think that most people, when they learn something, it's you continue to hold on to that. You don't want to go back to how things were before.
Oh yeah. But I mean, I distinctly remember the fear of earning more money and that it was going to change me.
Yeah.
And I think the lived experience is that the more money I've made, it's only made my values even stronger, because money really is an amplifier. It really, really is. And so if you're one of those people who who tends to hoard and tends to not give and tends to be stingy, then yes, money will probably amplify those things for you. But if you're somebody who is generous, who is compassionate, who is really like a people-oriented person, money will also amplify those values as well.
And you mentioned this, that women have such buying power. And I know statistically they can be purchasing for up to 4 generations within their family potentially. And so it would be nice to have more money so that your values can feel aligned and solid and amplified
Yeah,
in who
well, I
you
mean,
are.
money is resource. Like that's
Yeah.
all we're talking about here. It's just being more resourced. That's it.
Yeah.
Just being more resourced. And I don't know anybody who, I think a lot of us grow up with messages of like, well, money doesn't make you happy. It's like, but money does create freedom. It creates peace of mind. It creates security. It creates opportunity. It creates options. I mean, money creates a lot of things for us, a lot. So I think so many of us we're just kind of we haven't sat down long enough to unpack it, honestly.
Hmm.
And if more of us sat down to really unpack it of like what are the stories that I'm carrying about money, I think that most of us would find that we actually don't agree with that and we can create something new.
It's like a hangover that's been handed down generationally, our thoughts around money. Like,
Oh yeah. And
mhm.
it's taboo on purpose, right? So I mean, not many of us are having money conversations. You probably even grew up in a household where it was wrong to talk about money or shameful to talk about money or a major faux pas to talk about money. And that's like intentionally designed that way. So, I mean, we
Mm.
don't have financial education growing up. Like,
Hmm.
the only financial education I received in grade school was learning how to write a check and balance a checkbook. That was it. I didn't learn anything about debt. I didn't learn anything about building wealth. I didn't learn anything about investing. I didn't learn anything about, I mean, maybe a little bit of economics, but not enough to really feel like I had mastered that conversation. And that's intentional on purpose. So that the people who do understand wealth can continue to amass it, while the rest of us are kind of left like scratching our head and then feeling like it's wrong to want money. So I just, yeah, when you start to zoom out, you start to kind of get curious about all of these things, how is it intentionally designed, and then how you want to create a different reality.
Which is totally possible through Dream Money. So share with us about Dream Money and what
Yeah.
that program looks like and who has access to it and like what will people find when they go there.
Yes. So Dream Money is specifically for small business owners. I intentionally created it for solo CEOs or those with really small fractional teams. You're likely under 3 million in yearly revenue. And we usually say the quicker you get started with Dream Money, like the shorter your growth trajectory is for learning how to run and scale a sustainable business. And so I think a lot of times when people think about their finance department in their business, they're thinking about accounting, they're thinking about bookkeeping, they're thinking about taxes. They might even be thinking about a CFO who can offer some advice and strategic decisions. The thing that Dream Money is really bringing to the table is that most of us have all of these systems to help us figure out what happened with our money, but we
Hmm.
don't have a tool that helps us clarify what we want to have happen with our money. And so Dream Money is a future mapping tool. It's helping you get clear on the revenue that your business needs to generate to fund your life and especially fund your dreams. It's helping you map out your sustainable revenue plan for bringing those dreams to life. We also really think through sustainable business design when we're educating our business owners because not all money is dream money. It's very easy to have burnt out money or I'm working way too hard money. And so, how can
Hmm.
we be more intentional with that? It's also going to help you cast financial projections so you have good visibility into how you're designing your cash flow because we have so much agency as business owners to plan out different sales sprints and all of those things that have a huge impact to, how money flows in and out of our business. And then we also help with cash flow management. So you're building the actual skill of learning how to manage money, whether you're going through, a low revenue month or a high revenue month, knowing how to manage that money wisely is a thing that's going to build real confidence as a CEO. And so Dream Money is really building or bringing a whole circle of tools from where you want to go in your business financially, so helping you set the financial vision, to how you're going to earn that money to how you're going to manage it once it's coming in. So you're not only building sustainable growth in your business, but you're also learning the skills that are essential for building true wealth.
For women who are earning in that 20,000 to 50,000 range from their
Mhm.
businesses, is this still an appropriate program for them?
Oh my gosh, yes. So we have people who come in who are under six figures and they really need to learn how to earn money in a sustainable way. That is the biggest thing. Until you're over 250K in revenue, your primary focus should be earning money, learning how to sustainably earn money in your business. Once you're over that 250K threshold and you're starting to move, to the high multiple six figures or even a million, people who come into our framework then, they really need financial systems. They need to be thinking about how do I increase my personal income? How do I pay myself consistently? How do I understand my cash flow? So I'm always, having more coming in than going out. And then how am I really protecting my profit margin? Because that's the thing that's really going to be the biggest health indicator of your
Mhm.
business's financials. And so whether you're under six figures, in the high multiple six figures, or even my seven-figure business owners, they all get so much value out of Dream Money. Because we don't have a framework like this. We just don't. It doesn't exist. And so that's why, I wanted to create it for myself first because I had to figure it out. But then when I started teaching it to other people, they were like, oh my gosh, where has this been all my life? And so that's our biggest focus for Dream Money.
Amazing. Well, it has been such a joy to watch the growth of your business on the socials and to actually be able to share space with you in rooms here in Omaha. So I will also put the links for Dream Money into the show notes so people can get a hold of you. Any final, well, I have two questions. One is, what's on your playlist right now? What are you listening to?
I was literally just listening to a lo-fi beats station because I've been doing a lot of like business work today, like building things. But if it's not that, it's Taylor Swift on repeat because I'm a huge Swiftie. So that's what I got jamming out over here.
I am too. I have so much respect for her as an artist, as a businesswoman, as a human
Yes.
being. I
Yes.
think she is incredible. So
Me
good
too.
stuff. And
Yes.
then for people who have been listening to this episode, they are maybe 35 to 60 years old. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they're in a business, maybe they're contemplating it. They're
Mm-hmm.
taking care of people. Either they're trying to take care of themselves, or trying to take care of an older adult, or maybe they're taking care of their kids. Any final thoughts for them around money?
Hmm. I think one of the most challenging things around money is trying to figure it out on your own.
Mm.
And I think one of the most important things that we can do, especially as business owners, is really understanding the right problems we need to be solving. One of my colleagues said to me a few years ago that, we as humans, we have unlimited potential, but limited capacity. And what that says to me is that where we focus our time and energy really, really deeply matters. And so if you want to step into a different reality with money, and especially a different relationship with it, having mentorship that can point you to here's the first thing that you need to solve first, then the next thing you need to solve, and the next thing you need to solve. Having mentorship really does provide a map. So you're not winging it. And I think anytime we are winging it, it's really hard for us to feel confident that we know what we're doing and that we can trust ourselves. And so don't do money alone. Like one of the things that we do inside our Dream Money community is that we have a monthly call for all of our business owners. And one of the things that we're getting ready to implement, especially for people who do our yearly tier, which Dream Money is very accessible, by the way. It's $297 a quarter or $997 a year. But when you go at the yearly tier, we also have a money buddy call. So you don't have to sit down with your numbers on your own. And so you would be surprised just how much supported people feel when there's somebody in the room with them doing some hard money stuff until it becomes so easy. It's like the sky is blue. And
Yeah,
that's what I want for everybody. So if money feels charged right now, it's normal for it to feel charged, but it doesn't have to stay feeling charged. And that's the power of doing money work.
I love it. Thanks for being here today. This was such a great conversation.
Well, thanks for having me.
My pleasure.